All right. And we are here. Thought you could keep us down on our Christmas show, but not going to happen. Welcome to Patriot, Lament. My name is Joshua Bennett. Be here for the next 1 hour and 23 minutes. In studio, got Mr. Mike Anderson. Good morning, Mr. Mike Anderson.
Good morning.
And on the wonderful, what do they call it?
Skype.
Interwebs. Have Dave on YouTube and on the line. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Josh.
All right, sounds good.
Busy morning, Josh.
Busy morning. This is our 9th annual Christmas show. Shorter than some, but actually longer than the original 2 or 3. So there you go. So on the Christmas show, we always open the phone lines to y'all to call in, and you take priority. And that doesn't happen very often. The phone number for the show is 907-458-8255. And we're just going to kind of, what in the world is going up and on here? Oh. There we go.
It's the most.
Yes, it is. No matter how you put it.
With the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you be a good.
So, kind of came in here in the middle of the hour here, but next hour we'll have a few minutes to be prepared and rock this thing out. So, again, listen to us on 97.5 on the FM, 660 AM on the KFAR. You can always jump on your TuneIn app to listen on your cell phone. Look for 660 KFAR. Actually, you can look for Patriot Lament and it'll pop up. KFAR has its own app too, if you'd like to. They'd like to tell you folks that they are celebrating their 80th anniversary in Fairbanks. And someone keeps putting it back on the other side, so I'm not going to change it anymore. Good grief. So I'll just do there's your advertisement for the day. So, we've got 20 minutes to tell the Christmas story, but since that's not enough time, we're going to get deep instead. Mr. Mike Anderson, a couple years ago, you didn't like Christmas very much. You were the Grinch in my Christmas life and on the Christmas show. So, I'm going to put you on the spot. Because it is. I just want you to give me a little story about Mike Anderson, what you used to think about Christmas, and what you think about Christmas now. And if there's no change, there's no problem. Just give me your thoughts.
Or what I think about it versus how I feel on Christmas.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
This is the Mike Anderson Show.
No.
And you're running out of time, so you better take advantage of it. Dave, don't be smiling too big, because you're next, because you used to be a Grinch too.
I don't know that I've changed too much, but I would have to say the happiest times I had at Christmas, I guess, was with your family, when our families would get together. That was kind of the highlight for Christmas for me. For me, the time of years is difficult here because of the darkness.
Do freezing pipes ever come to mind?
Yeah, that's happened to me too. And broken vehicles at minus 30. Changing an engine cooler or an oil cooler at minus 25. Things like that. That seems to overwhelm me. It seems to overwhelm the spirit of Christmas that one is supposed to have, right? Perhaps the expectation that you're supposed to be joyful and the realities of life conflicting with each other.
You mean to tell me that things aren't always happy?
Or definitely not. But then if you didn't have the unhappy times, you couldn't recognize the happy times, could you?
It'd be more difficult.
Right.
You know, I was thinking about that just the other day. I'm helping you here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the Mike Anderson show right now. I was thinking about, you know, the word happiness and the difference between that and being joyful. And our brother Paul, the disciple, the apostle Paul, came to mind. And I was thinking about, it was something I was reading on Instagram, actually. And I was thinking that, you know, when he wrote the book of Romans, and some of the other ones even, he was actually sitting in prison. And I don't think they had any Frank Turney's at the time doing any prisoner advocacies or such things, you know what I mean? Pretty sure it was pretty rotten. Because life itself was pretty crappy back then as far as material things. I mean, I think, you know, the rich people then lived like the poorest paupers in any part of the world right now. And, you know, he told us to give thanks in all things. And you can think, well, that's easy for you to say, Paul. You met Jesus. You had a great life. You got to talk to him. He came and talked to you. God would talk to you face to face. Well, and he talked about that thorn in his side that he asked it would just be taken away. But it wasn't. It was never taken away from him. Yet he said to have joy anyways, in all things. Give thanks in all things, even sitting in a crappy Roman prison where I doubt they didn't have any commodes, they didn't have any running water. I don't know if they gave you a bucket, you know, honey bucket like we got up here or whatever, but joy in all things. So go ahead, Mike.
Joy would be a deeper concept than happiness. Happiness can be or something can be interpreted as happiness, which is nothing more than a dopamine response, a quick, a pleasure response. And I think people tend to confuse the two, where, I look forward to Christmas, to opening gifts. And they open a gift and they're happy for 30 minutes while they play with it, right? And that's the dopamine response. That's the quick pleasure response. But it's not equatable to joy. A joy would be more of a serotonin response.
Neither is it equitable to joy.
Right. So you can be in a miserable place, but have joy. You can be missing the pleasure responses, but you can still have joy, as in contentment. I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. It sucks, but at the same time, I know it's for some greater reason that I don't understand at the moment. And you can take joy in that.
You almost got away with it. So what do you think about Christmas these days? Although I did love your response there.
It's a broad question. What part of Christmas? The Christmas spirit, the Christmas story.
You used to just be a Grinch and didn't like it at all. Of course, I mean, then again, there's not like, you had a few baseball bats up against your head a few of those years. What's it mean to you? And don't tell me, I don't care about the commercialization part. I'll watch Charlie Brown sometime here, Charlie Brown Christmas, and he'll explain all that for me. Does it mean anything to you beyond that? And I appreciate what you said about being over at the house on Christmas, because you're right, that's good times. That was some joyful times.
Yeah.
So what does this story mean to you? The greatest story ever told, the most wonderful time of the year. And it doesn't have to mean anything. So I'm just asking. And you're right.
It really, honestly, the story itself doesn't mean much to me.
Okay.
What means much to me would be the message that is attributed to Christ. I think that is of real importance. I guess sometimes I think about, if the message is so important, why do we need to attribute it to a supernatural being to make it important? I kind of relate that to the anarchist idea of good ideas don't need to be forced on people. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, keep going. I'm just getting ready for the next hour while I listen.
Okay. I mean, there's did the Christmas story literally happen? Yeah, I wasn't there. I can't say it did or didn't. It has parallels to stories that existed prior to that. Is it possible it was a story written to give credence to a philosophical idea? And I tend to lean to that at times. Yeah, I don't know. It's the time of year is kind of difficult for me, to be honest.
Yep.
I
think that's a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah. And then there's I think it doesn't meet for a lot of people, it doesn't meet the expectations of what they want in life. In other words, they're supposed to be joyful, but they don't feel like they're joyful. And why not? They're conflicted inside. I'm supposed to be joyful, but I don't feel like there's anything to be joyful about. And that's probably a result of people's own short-sightedness.
Other people's short-sightedness or your own?
The individual's short-sightedness.
All right, that's fair enough.
I know that's kind of a rambling, unorganized answer, but
that's all right. I hit you without a.
Yeah, we weren't planning on this, but
that's when it's more fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave. We'll move it on to you. Thanks, Mike. And you got 10 minutes to think about it. So
10 minutes to think about it. Well,
wasn't that that's a lot?
No, we're good to go. there's a few different angles on Christmas, but last Christmas, one of the angles that I got, that I understood for the first time, really appreciated, was what it meant for the Savior to come. What does that mean? And so I'll frame it in terms of libertarianism, because we have a bunch of, this is a quasi-political show. So, libertarians are always, how would I describe it? They're always saying, well, once the laws are abolished, once the state is abolished, we'll all act as we should in order for society to work without laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting for everything to be perfect so that they can act the way that they wish people would act in many cases. And they're waiting for it to be politically feasible for the world to be a good place. And the Christmas story really hit me last year, because Christ didn't wait for anything. Christ was born of a unwed woman whose husband was about to ditch her, into abject poverty. And then with the census going on and everything, there was this infanticide that happened, right? And they had to flee to Egypt. And then, it's like the worst possible circumstance to be born into. Born into the lowest class, or one of the lowest classes of people in an empire that appeared to be invincible. You want to talk about political feasibility? Like, Christ got a lot lower percentage of the vote than Ron Paul ever did. So it was just, the story on the one hand is just, it's the most bleak thing you could possibly imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't matter at all to God, because that's the path that God took to show us what it means to be delivered. Because Christ didn't complain about that ever, and Christ didn't use it as an excuse to not do the right thing. Christ did the right thing in spite of all of that. And what did that lead to? What did doing the right thing lead to? It led to him being crucified for harming no one. Didn't complain about that either. And by going through his life that way, never deviating from what was right, to the point of death, which actually happened, that was the way that played out. He set the example for what we're supposed to do. And that's the Christmas story. The Christmas story is the most wonderful example of how to live and how to be, being this giant sacrifice made in the bleakest of circumstances. Not like, oh, everything's going well, so I'm gonna give a gift or something. But like, everything is really bad right now, and I'm still gonna give everything. Anyway, that really hit me last year, and then I understood what it meant to be free. Because when you stop making excuses, and when you stop waiting for things to go the way you want them to, and you just do the right thing all the time anyway, that's freedom. Like, that's the freedom that Christ brings. You're free from the law. Just do what's right. Live in the right way, under all circumstances. That's freedom from sin. It's the ability to live with yourself, to become someone who you actually respect and admire, rather than somebody who you sort of resent and don't like very much. And so that's the answer. The answer to all of these, libertarian type political questions about, well, what circumstance do we need to be free? The answer actually happened a couple thousand years ago. Christ came and said, just live as if everything you do is important, and as if you should treat everyone with non-aggression, like you should treat everyone with peace and kindness, which doesn't mean being a pushover, but it does mean treating everybody else as if they are a divine being created in the image of God, which is what Christ did. That's the example he set, and he was the first one to set that example. And it was so countercultural that he was killed for it. And it was so powerful that it ultimately toppled the Roman Empire. And so it's a big, like last year I just got it. It's like, this is a huge deal. This is the whole thing. It's not some political theory book you need to read. It's not an economic system that needs to be set up. It's nothing you need to wait for. It's not a tax reform. It's not an immigration policy. It's nothing of that sort. It's already here, and Christ laid it out, and that story begins on Christmas, and the Christmas story itself is an example of that. So that was last year.
Nice. That is very nice. I like that. And I was just going to hit a phone call, and they hung up right when you finished there. Caller, if you call back right now, I will answer the call. Ooh, I will answer the call. That's an interesting way to put it. But he's not. Go ahead.
This year, I've had a little bit different experience. This year, I've been more involved with the church that I go to, and we just did a big dinner last night for a bunch of folks who don't really have families and haven't really had the ability to celebrate Christmas for whatever reason for a long time. And a lot of them are cringy about Christmas because the experience to them is one of being left out. It's one of their unfortunate social position being highlighted. And we had this amazing event where a bunch of people from the congregation are there, and way more people from these places, these groups that we support were there. And it was an amazing time. And what was really cool was it didn't really involve any money. It just involved people being together and expressing a genuine concern for each other as human beings. And it's in service that you see what the world could be, so I watched one of the versions of A Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens, last night too, and that's the transformation Scrooge has. When Scrooge sees Christmas as money, he sees nothing good in it, and then he sees it as an opportunity to serve, and then he sees it as an opportunity to practice the lifestyle of serving, and that's his transformation. And again, you don't have to wait for the society to see it that way. You just do it. You just live it yourself, and then the world changes for you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we got to take this break, but we're going to cut everything else out. We'll be right back.
Fire forcing dozens from their homes in Las Vegas. I'm Jane Metzler, Fox News. 6 people dead, 13 injured, 5 in critical condition after an early morning fire raced through a 3-story apartment complex. Most of the people hospitalized suffering from smoke inhalation, but others who jumped from windows to escape the flames have
multiple fractures. I think we have one individual has broken legs and possibly a broken back.
Tim Szymanski with the Las Vegas Fire Department. Nearly 3 dozen people are homeless. The cause of the blaze under investigation. It may have started when a resident used a stove to heat their apartment. President Trump and family in Florida spending the holidays at Mar-a-Lago amid uncertainty over his Senate impeachment trial.
Democrats want to call witnesses. They want the acting chief of staff and budget director, Mick Mulvaney, former national security advisor John Bolton, among others, to testify. The president has also wanted to broaden any impeachment trial to include the Bidens and their conduct in Ukraine. Though there are Republicans who want this process to be short and quickly vote to acquit the president based on what they say is a July call with the Ukrainian president that does not meet the standard to remove the president.
Fox's Rich Edson in West Palm Beach. The White House counsel's office spending the holidays working on the president's defense. Many of those attorneys in Florida, where we know they won't have a white Christmas. How about the rest of the country?
Here's our expectations for a white Christmas across the country. Higher elevations out in the west, so that's where we're seeing more snowfall. Not very likely to see snow if you live on the eastern half of the country. Instead, we're going to be tracking a big rainy mess that might even be slowing down travel over the next couple of days.
That's Fox meteorologist Adam Klotz. America is listening to Fox News.
All right. I'm not going to listen to any more Fox News. Kind of ruins Christmas. Bunch of jerks. Let's go to the caller here real quick. Hello, caller, you're up.
Oh, I'm still laughing at that Fox News ruined Christmas. that was pretty good. Hey, this is Napoleon, man.
Morning. Thanks for calling in.
No problem. I couldn't hit you on the. Catch up on the YouTube, so I went for a drive in this wonderful cold today. But what a nice day for a drive if you're not out. It is pretty.
If you got a good heater in your car.
Yeah, true that. I was just loving your everybody's thoughts and beliefs and sharing, which is awesome this time of year to share your thoughts and your testimony to people. I guess my thoughts took me to what the whole thing means, what the whole Christmas means. To me, it's all about death and the ability to conquer it, because every religion, every belief going on before then and at that time, you had Tammuz and his mother, and you had all those belief systems, but the Jesus that we all know, he came to the earth. He was born just as a humble man, but the one thing that he did differently throughout his life was that he conquered death. And you all know where that story leads, and of course leads into Easter. But so to me, the story is all about death, because when and it helps everybody in this world as they lose people around them. It helps them to understand where that it's not the end. That it's not just live this life; it's over. And so his being born and then being resurrected, to me, it helps any person dealing with death.
I've heard before, been told before, it's not true, and that's just your little way of dealing with it. You're just like, some people do drugs, some people drink, and you do religion to deal with yada blah blah blah. And let's just say that the whole Christmas story, there's no truth to it at all. Okay, let's just say the whole life of Christ, the death and resurrection, defeating death and hell, is all just a fantasy that we made up so we feel better. So what? So what did Christ, I don't believe that at all, but tell me, Christ said that, David was just talking about what his message was, how we treat each other, how we live our lives, how we conduct ourselves, which is definitely hard to do on a daily basis, which is why we need grace, which is what we have, which is really the thing that allows you to have joy, knowing that you have the grace. But I've always thought, well, if it isn't true and I die someday and find out or don't find out that I just live this weird life, whatever, how much worse am I off just because some people said I was weird or a sucker or an idiot because you believe in a God? Big deal. My life's not worse or off. Worser? My life's not worse off because of it by any stretch. If anything, I mean, at the very least, take the theology out of it, take the deity out of it. The way that Christ taught us to live and told us to live is the best way to treat each other.
That's right.
I mean, it's just like what David said, we have these things with libertarians and anarcho-capitalists, and you have these people and their non-aggression principles, and, we get rid of the state, all will be well. No, you still have fallen man. Mm-hmm. Fallen man's the reason we have a state. It isn't because we got a state and then man fell. Man fell and chose to have that. It's like God told us that, when the Israelites said, give us a king, he said, okay, you're rejecting me? Fine, here's your king. So, in my mind, it absolutely is the truth. And even if people don't want to believe that Christ is God, the way he said to live and to treat each other and to go about our daily lives is absolutely the truth. There's no way of getting around that part.
Even if it didn't happen, it is one great way to live your life.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with it. And you said something that kind of, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I cut you off. Go ahead.
You said something awesome. That okay, say I think you said, okay, so I'm going to die, and then I'm going to wake up. Which, in your mind, when you think about that, how can everybody else not? How can you, in your mind, say that? Okay, when I die, I'm gonna, being able to say that, I'm gonna wake up, or when I wake up, I'm gonna look back and go, oh, I was wrong or I was right. I think inherently, everybody believes that they're going to wake up after they die. So anyway, that caught my mind. That caught me as you said that. When I wake up after I die, what are my thoughts going to be? So interesting to think about what you might be thinking when you wake up.
Well, and either way about it, if you don't believe in an afterlife, you're here, right? If you can hear this radio waves, you're here. Let us share with you what we found is the best way to get through life, because it sucks. It's hard. Things don't go good all the time. It doesn't suck all the time, but for some people it sucks all the time. Some people, their life is miserable all the time as far as the outward appearance, the outward feeling, the outward attacks on them or whatever. And there's some people like that still have joy. So I guess it is that we're just saying, if you don't want to believe it the way that we believe it, okay, but let us share with you what we've found is the best way to get through life. All of us have to run the race, and we're all going to finish it one way or the other. It just depends on if you're going to what finish line you're going to reach.
And again, that brought me anyway in my thoughts, it brings me back to death, because can you imagine thinking that, maybe you have an uncle that's on your grandpa or whatever, your dad, maybe he's on his deathbed, and knowing or thinking, this is it. I'm never going to see this man again. I'm never going to be able to do that. But because of Jesus Christ, and because he conquered death, whether or not that person believed it or not, it is going to find that out at some point. That's my belief. So death, I think, is I think death has a huge factor there.
Yeah, I will agree with you there. I've dealt with death. Most of us have, at various stages of our life, and it's not fun. And that's where I was going with the crutch part. Well, wow, because knowing I was going to see like my best friend when I was 17 died. And the thing that helped me get through it was I'll see him again. And, you know, it was a slow 3-year death that we knew was coming. So, you know, that was one of the things he'd say back to me. Don't worry, we'll be together again.
And then on the other side of that, what you just said, how awesome that at some point when we wake up there, however that all happens, that's the awesomeness too. We don't know, we don't understand that. But when we do that waking up bit, to be able to seek out those relationships, it's going to be the best. So I have no doubt about it. I believe it with all my heart. So sorry if I bored the radio, but that's how I feel.
Heck no. It's good. We appreciate it.
So, you guys have a Merry Christmas, man. I love your show.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. That was a nice interjection from a caller. Very nice. All right. Now, some of you out there are wondering, everyone, if you haven't seen it, you really need to sit down and take the time to watch Charlie Brown Christmas, because it is one of the greatest Christmas stories that man's ever created for the television. And it almost didn't happen. I was reading about this, that they told Schultz kind of tone it down a little, and they didn't really want to put it on. They made some, I think it was CBS, made a few changes here and there, and he's like, no, you keep my story the way it is, or it's not going up. And it has become yearly one of the most popular Christmas programs in the world. And here's why.
Isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about? Sure, Charlie Brown. I can tell you what Christmas is all about. Lights, please. And there were in the same country shepherds, abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them. And the glory of the Lord shone round about them. And they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not. For behold, I bring you tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God, and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. That's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown. Behold, I bring you tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. You've been dumb before, Charlie Brown, but this time you really did it. What a treat.
Sorry. I didn't cut that off fast enough because I was supposed to go to this one. But the important part about that song, that part of the song, is when the angels come and sing, they say, "Glory to God in the highest," and the best part of that is he says, "And peace on earth, and God's good will towards man, and those of whom he is well pleased." We didn't have that before. That was the part of the Christmas story that meant the most. God was giving his goodwill, finally, towards those of whom he was well pleased. And you go back, the Christmas story, I believe, was foretold throughout the scriptures, the Bible or whatever. So I'm going to, go back to Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, chapter 9:6. "For unto us the child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of his peace there will be no end, on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold with justice and righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. In the zeal of the host will do this." That's one of the reasons why I don't believe in worldly governments. I believe that it's a misconception to think that the worldly governments are set on his shoulders. His government is on his shoulders. The government. All other governments are copycats. All the governments of the world are trying to copy and distort what the true government is, and that's God's government. And God's government's the one that we were talking about, his laws, his truths, and his ways that he came here to tell us about. All the other governments are the devil's, they're Satan's. And he does with it what he does with everything else, distorts. He gives us laws that aren't real laws, but he makes us think, oh, they're laws. God has laws. He gives us governments. We think, oh, well, it's a government. God says he's got the government. Governments give us so-called peace. They're certainly not the same kind of peace that God talks about. I don't think we can equate George W. Bush's, what he said peace was compared to what Christ said peace was. I think George Bush literally said, well, we bring around about peace through war. We're fighting our war to have peace. We started the war to have peace. And further back in Samuel, when the Israelites did demand a king, so we could be like all the other peoples. And Samuel was like, come on, guys. Seriously? Make sure you tell them this. I'll give them their king. I'll give them their man's government. And he'll take your daughters to do his bidding. He'll take all the fruits of your labor. He'll take your sons to send off to war. And in the day that you come to me griping and whining and complaining, I won't hear you because you made your choice. You haven't rejected Samuel. You reject God when you accept an earthly kingdom. Because man cannot serve two masters. He either hates the one and loves the other. That doesn't just have to do with money. I got in an argument with a guy one time. He goes, well, that only means money. You either love money or you can only love, if you love money, then you hate God. That doesn't have to do with anything else. And I said, so you're telling me that simply applies to the love of money, but you can love more than one master? I said, so can you love evil and good at the same time? Well, no. Well, no. If you'd like to join us, 907-458-8255. I'm just going to be reading little tidbits and then play beautiful music that follows up with it that I think was actually inspired by God. caller. You're up next.
Randy?
Hey, Randy, how you doing?
Good. That was nice music you were playing there.
Thank you.
I just thought I'd tell you about some of the joy that I have had. I'm receiving or about to receive, I think, a Christmas gift that's worth $400, and I'm joyous about it. And what it is has to do with not having to pay taxes on my permanent fund dividend. You know, everybody that gets a permanent fund dividend has to pay taxes unless they donate it, and then at the same time they can itemize on their tax return. Then I guess they wouldn't have to pay taxes on it. I have donated in the past years my PFP to general fund of the state of Alaska, but I have to pay taxes on it because I don't have enough money to itemize, and so I just take the standard deduction. But a $1,600 dividend would cost me about $400 for the 25% marginal tax rate. I mean, my actual tax rate is, less than that, but at the margin, at the last $100 I earn and so forth. But I found out that they will, I emailed the PFD office and found out that they will be willing to void my PFD check if I send it back to them. So I mailed it back to them yesterday, and they're going to, with a letter asking them to void it. I'm hoping that'll excuse me from taxes.
Okay.
Hope that wasn't too obscure for your show.
No, that's cool. That's cool. That's a very different angle on trying to avoid losing value through taxation than I would have ever conceived of.
Well, it just means that $400 will stay in Alaska instead of being shipped off to Washington. So
right. It's that's kind of a funny way of telling the state, hey, like, I'm on your side, but you gotta be on my side. That's a very interesting situation, Randy.
I also gave him a little bit of a rationale of, why did I apply for it in March? I said I applied for it in March because I thought the legislature would come up with a balanced budget. Unfortunately, they didn't. There's a big deficit. I said I feel uncomfortable keeping the PFD in this circumstance, and so I'm shipping it back like you to void it for me and send me a receipt that says it has been voided. So I just mailed it, so they haven't quite got it yet, but I'm waiting. Christmas present.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's a neat way to look at it. That's cool.
Pretty fantastic, Randy.
Bye.
Interesting. Thank you. Randy stumps me sometimes. But
he has a different angle on stuff, man.
I'll save it for next week. From Isaiah 40. Comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her hard service has been completed. Her sin has been paid for, and she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. A voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley will be raised up, every mountain and hill will be made low, and rough ground will become level, and rugged places a plain. And the glory of the Lord will be revealed. And all the people will see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken.
Shall see it together. Long, long, shall see it
I love that song. So far, I've been playing songs from the great traditional Handel's Messiah. It's a few hours long if you care to just crank it up on your, what do we use now? I was going to say stereo, but that doesn't quite fit anymore. If you want to grab your Apple phone or your Google device, iPod, or your YouTube, you can just find, let's see, I have the whole album on this one. It's written, let's see, the London Philharmonic Orchestra and Walter Hustkind. I don't know how to say his last name. Handel's Messiah Complete, and it is good. They do it the right way. Some people do Handel Messiah stuff, and they don't do it the right way. There's a certain way to do it. There's a right speed. There's a right tempo. There's a right everything. And you will find, if you search, because I have a bunch of them on my phone, these guys do it right. I'm proud of them. Let's go to the phones. 458-8255-907 if you're out of state. Hello, caller. You're up next.
Hi. I'm enjoying the program. I haven't got to listen to it for a while. I've been on night shift. But anyway, I really am appreciative of today's theme, and I wanted to share a few thoughts about Christ and how totally unprepared we ever were to have the very word become human, become flesh, and to tabernacle among us, as the Bible says. And the very God who spoke this universe into existence, we can't even comprehend this. I've likened the whole universe as a package, with myriads of galaxies and myriads of stars in each one. Probably the whole package is one brain cell in God's mind or brain, but his thoughts become material, where ours are just like wishful. But in any case, however that he holds it all together, he's unbelievably awesome compared to anything we could even imagine. Christ became like us as this little package brought into humanity that we might become like him. And we were made initially in the image and likeness of God, so that, we have to ask a question: what went wrong and what are we lacking, and why did it all have to happen the way that it did? And I just wanted to say this as the few thoughts that I've gotten to hear today that have tried to express our emotions and gratitude for what Christ has done for us, that there's probably people out there that have no clue, why do we even care about all this, or is it really true, or what do I do about it? And, we have to understand that we're made in the image and likeness of God. We're body and soul and spirit. And the Bible tells us that there are those that'll live as a carnal man. We all know what that's about. We all see it around us and the evils that are part of it. There's the soulish man. What's the soul? The soul is our intellect, our will, and our feelings or our emotions. So those that kind of reign in the flesh and take a bit of a higher road will, live in accordance to what works for them, all self-directed, mind you. And then there's the spiritual man. And we also have a spirit. But God's saying none of that's adequate, because our righteousness is like a filthy garment that we have on that's been contaminated by our own selves. And we need some solution to get right with God, because all of our goodness, all of our righteousness comes short because we all failed. And so God's saying, look, I'm going to give you a way out. And he did in the person of Christ. And so I just wanted to share that maybe there's people out there that don't know why we're excited about the remembrance of his coming and aren't even paying any mind to the fact that he's about to return at any time. And we don't know when, but I just wanted to share this idea that get ready. Israel's back in the land. Everything, the stage is set. The nations are surrounding Israel. Everything's ready for him to come to take the church away. And all hell will break loose on this earth. And I've said it before on this program, for the lost that are following their own ways, this is as close to heaven as you'll ever come. And to the Christian, this is as close to hell as you'll ever come. And the whole point about all of this is that we need to rejoice that God has made it possible to receive his spirit, and that we can lose the self-directed life. In other words, God will indwell and make his abode in us. That's possible by being born twice, so we don't have to die twice. And the reason I'm bringing this up is there's people out there that don't even know how. They don't even understand that whoever calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. And so I wanted to share this, that the goodness that we think we have in our hearts is shown by testings of life to come pretty short. And we need to know his indwelling presence. How do we know? Because God's Spirit, when brought into our spirit, when he makes his home in us, when we've been born again by him from above, we have the fruit of the Spirit in the inner man: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. We don't come this way. We're, as you said earlier, contaminated by sin, but God has made this provision for us that we can be his dwelling place. And how does this happen? I just wanted to share that God saves us from ourselves. We're saved unto the Lord and go from this self-directed life and to be led by Christ. And so if in fact we repent and we realize that this is a full surrender before God, and we say, I'm done with myself, I'm sorry for what I've done, and we call on his name, Yeshua, the Lord Jesus Christ, we then realize that in order to live, we got to die. And that's why the Apostle Paul wrote in Galatians 2:20, I'm crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live in faith, the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. And I remind you of Christ's words out of Matthew 12, that when Christ made the point about whoever's not with me is against me, and whoever doesn't gather with me scatters. Get ready for his coming, church. And for those around that wish they understood what this all means, this is what it's about. And I just wanted to share those thoughts with everyone. And God love you all.
Thanks for sharing those.
Thanks, you guys. God bless you, and have a blessed Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too. I have two quotes from. I have two quotes from Fred Rogers, who's kind of trending right now. One of them was, well, they put one up on the projector at our Christmas dinner last night. But so that got it in my mind. I have two other ones here. Here's one of them, which is directly related to Christ and why Christmas is a big deal. So Fred Rogers says, I believe that at the center of the universe, there dwells a loving spirit who longs for all that's best in all of creation, a spirit who knows the great potential of each planet as well as each person, and little by little will love us into being more than we ever dreamed possible. That loving spirit would rather die than give up on any one of us. That's the whole story of the crucifixion. And then there's another one that's very short. This is also from Fred Rogers. And he says, one of my wise teachers, Dr. Orr, told me there's only one thing evil cannot stand, and that is forgiveness, which is, again, the Christmas story and the Easter story. That's why it's such a big deal. It's not about, Christ's coming wasn't about being right or winning a battle or, a war or something like that. It was about love and forgiveness and kindness being more powerful than armies and wealth and, worldly power. And that's a big deal. That's part of the nonsense nature of the Christmas celebration, as Scrooge saw it. It's just people who can't afford to take care of themselves, giving people stuff they can't afford to buy. That's all he could see.
Right. Narrow vision.
Narrow vision. Yeah, your life isn't made of things.
If someone hasn't heard the words of what we're talking about when we said he taught us how to live or whatever, I want to bring up something from Matthew 5. One of the things that's interesting about Matthew 5 is that it actually says that he taught them. A lot throughout the scriptures it says, and Jesus said, or and Jesus spoke, and Jesus said, and then Jesus said, and Jesus said, and this one it says, he opened his mouth and he taught them, saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were sent before you. Now I want to play a little. Man, we're running out of time. I'm going to play a little dingy here from Carol of the Kings. I think this is the King's Choir, King's College Choir. There's a thing on YouTube if you guys want. You can check out the King's College Christmas concert or something like King's College Boys Choir Christmas concert on YouTube, and it is worth a watch. And you're going to find out why right now. All right, I gotta pause. This is the best part of the whole song. Whoops, what happened? Give me a second. This is what Christmas is all about. The verse they're going to sing now. Truly, he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Gospel means good news. So his good news is peace. Chains shall he break, For the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression will cease. Sweet hymns of joy and grateful chorus raise we. Let all within us praise his holy name. Christ is the Lord, oh praise his name forever. His holy power evermore proclaim. His holy power and glory evermore proclaim. Well, caller, you are up next, Marcus. Go ahead, caller.
Oh.
Yep, go ahead. You're up next.
It's Charles.
Charles, how are you doing, my friend?
I got a technical view of this. Kind of short on time. Herbert Spencer, he's a bad guy, said, this is from Immorality of the State. He says, let men learn that the legislature is not our God upon earth. Go by the authority they ascribe to it and the things they expect from it, they would seem to think it is. Let people learn government is an institution serving a purely temporary purpose, whose power, when not stolen, is at best borrowed. Thanks for the music. I'll let you comment. Thanks.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks, Charles. That is good.
That reminds me of the words to my favorite Christmas carol, which is Joy to the World.
Aha!
Which is very, very unambiguous about who rules the earth.
Right.
And what he rules it with. He rules the earth with truth and grace.
That, then... Oops. I almost typed in joy to the freaking world. That's
no necessary waiting for the right political shift.
Exactly.
It's already here.
Let's see if this is a good one.
Perfect gift this holiday doesn't come.
No. Oh my goodness.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let us receive.
Nope, not having it. I'm not having it. This is the way they did it. It's a little faster than I like it All right, we got to get this thing wrapped up. So we all hope you enjoyed it. We hope you have what they call a Merry Christmas. Mike, thanks for coming in today. Dave, thanks for joining us on there. We will be back next week, hopefully. And we'll leave it with what I think is one of the greatest Christmas songs ever known to mankind. Merry Christmas, everyone. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
AM, broadcasting Fairbanks and beyond. So sit back, relax, and prevent a heart attack.